People often ask me, what changed when you got rich? I usually answer simply, everything. But that's too easy an answer. And if you really want to know the truth, I'll tell you everything, without embellishments, without the gloss from movies, just as I lived it myself. How did it all start? I didn't win the lottery. I didn't get an inheritance from an unknown uncle. My story is much more banal and at the same time more complicated. I worked in it. For many years, a gray office, code, coffee, and plastic cups, but I always had a for the soul project, a small startup. Once I dreamed that it would take off, then I almost abandoned it. And suddenly an investor came, first one, then another. In a couple of years, we sold the company for an amount that I couldn't even say out loud without trembling back then. My bank account turned from a pathetic line in a mobile app into something usually shown in movies about oligarchs. I officially became rich. First sensations. Honestly, for the first few days I just sat and refreshed the balance on my phone. I looked at those numbers. They were unreal. I was afraid to spend even $1, as if the money would disappear. Then the euphoria began. I bought everything I wanted as a child. Game consoles of all generations. A huge TV, even though the old one was enough before. An expensive car that was more suited to a racer than an office worker. I took a vacation and flew to places I hadn't even dreamed of before: Maldives, New York, Tokyo. Every day was like a holiday. Reaction of friends and family. Friends were happy at first. Bro, take us to the party. Let me drive the car. Now you're really living like in the movies. Relatives, it was more complicated there. You know that phrase, when you get money, you also get 100 new relatives. Well, it's true. Letters, calls, requests for a little help. An aunt I saw twice in my life suddenly remembers that I'm her favorite nephew. At first I helped everyone. I didn't mind. I thought, well, I have money, sharing is right. But very quickly I realized, the more you give, the more they ask. The first dream purchase. My main dream was always a house. Not an apartment, but a real house. I bought it. 3 floors, a pool, my own office where I can work and feel like a movie hero at the same time. When I first walked inside, it felt like I had won at life. I remember walking through the empty rooms and feeling, this is my castle, a place where I'm the master. I thought, this is it, I did it, now everything will be perfect. When you're poor, you think rich people bathe in champagne every day. That's not true, but wealth has a taste. I went to a restaurant for the first time where the bill for dinner exceeded my former monthly salary. I flew business class for the first time. The feeling that you're a person, not cargo on a plane. I realized for the first time that I can say yes to any whim of mine, and it will be done the same day. And that's where the problem starts. At first you enjoy it, really, pleasure every minute. But then a strange feeling comes. I was sitting in my new house, in a huge living room with expensive furniture. On the table was a bottle of wine that a sommelier had chosen especially for me. I had a view of the sunset, a pool with lighting, music from speakers that cost as much as half of my parents' apartment. And suddenly I caught myself thinking, and what next? I didn't feel the happiness I expected. I got everything, but somehow inside it was empty. Several months passed. Some friends stopped writing. They said, "You're too cool for us now." I wanted to meet with them, but I felt that something had changed. Others, on the contrary, became intrusive. Every time we met, they found a way to talk about money. Bro, lend me some. Invest in my idea. Buy me something, you have it. And that's when I realized, wealth makes you not only rich but also lonely. I thought the scariest thing was envy, but one day I got a call from an unknown number. The voice said, "We know where you live, and we know how much money you have. Think about how to share properly." The call was short, without direct threats, but that was enough to send a chill down my spine. From that day, I began to understand money is not only freedom, it's also a target on your back. When people ask me what was the biggest shock after I got rich, I don't talk about yachts or planes. The scariest thing is how the people around you change. At first, everything looked like in the movies. Everyone smiled, said they were proud of me, but behind every smile I saw a question. How much will you give me? One cousin offered me a perfect business plan. According to him, it was a gold mine. In reality, a stupid scheme with dubious goods. An aunt asked for money for an operation, although it turned out later that the operation was cosmetology in an expensive clinic. Even my parents started acting strangely. Mom was embarrassed to ask directly, but constantly hinted, "Well, son, now you can afford everything," and Dad and I are still living in the old apartment. I loved them, I helped, but gradually I began to feel, for them I became not a son but an ATM with a son's face. Everyone has those friends, the ones you grew up with, went to school with, sat on the porches until night. I thought these people would be with me forever. But even they changed. At first we met, reminisced about old times, but conversations increasingly came down to money. "Well, you don't count every penny now like us. You don't understand, your life is easy. Bro, you have a car for hundreds of thousands, and I have a loan for 10 years. Maybe help." I helped once, twice, 3 times, but I realized this will never end. And when I refused, the friendship ended. And then new people appeared. It seemed like the whole world suddenly wanted to be my friend. At parties, in bars, in business class, on planes, everywhere there were those who wanted to make friends. But this friendship always had a price. Someone wanted an investment, someone just the status of friend of a rich guy, someone the opportunity to use my life while I don't notice. The creepiest thing, I gradually stopped believing in sincerity. Every person who approached me automatically aroused suspicion. And what do you want from me? When you have money, you can solve any everyday problem in a second. Need to fix the car? You already have a new one standing. No energy to cook? You have a chef. Don't want to stand in line? You buy VIP access. At first, this seems like paradise. But then you realize, you stop being able to solve problems yourself. I remember at some point I couldn't turn on the washing machine. I just didn't know how. I hadn't used it for over a year. And this feeling of helplessness in simple things, it's scarier than it seems. One day I was returning home late at night. At the gates of my house stood a man. I didn't know him. He smiled as if we knew each other and said, "Cool life you have, but remember, everything can be lost." And left. I called security, checked the cameras. His face wasn't saved anywhere, as if he knew where it wasn't visible. After that, I started to be afraid. Not of poverty, but that money made me a target. Girls, that's a separate story. Before, I doubted myself, had complexes. After getting rich, they started seeking me out themselves. Beautiful, well-groomed, confident. But almost always there was a feeling that they loved not me, but the image next to me. One time I decided to check, pretended I lost the money. The reaction: the girl disappeared in one day, just stopped answering calls. Since then I stopped trusting. It sounds strange, but wealth kills simple joys. Remember that feeling when you saved for something for months, and then finally bought it? I don't have it anymore. I could buy everything at once, and because of that, I didn't value anything. One day I was sitting at a table laden with expensive dishes, surrounded by people. Everyone was laughing, dancing, having fun. And suddenly, I felt like the loneliest person in the world. I realized that wealth is not only opportunities, it's also walls. You live in a beautiful cage. It's made of gold, with marble floors and panoramic windows, but it's still a cage. And the scariest thing, you build it yourself. In movies, rich people live beautifully, but in life, wealth has a shadow. And this shadow always walks beside you. As soon as the news about my money spread, it began. They called from the bank, where my account was supposedly blocked. Lawyers wrote, offering profitable investments. Even letters came, real ones on paper with seals. I hadn't even gotten used to the money yet, and dozens of people were already circling around who wanted to take them. I hired a lawyer, then security, but along with protection came something else, paranoia. You think the scariest enemies are bandits. No, the scariest are friends. One former colleague wrote to me, "Help, I have nothing to feed my family." I helped. Then he wrote again, I helped again. And then he said, "You're obligated, you have too much. Wealth is responsibility, share." When I refused, he started writing nasty things on social media, hinted that I'm a thief, that my money is dirty. And the scariest thing, people believed him, because in the eyes of many, the rich are always guilty. There were others. They offered to invest in nightclubs, in cryptocurrencies of the future, in some secret project for weapon production. Most often, everything looked beautiful presentations, suits, confident speeches. But behind the facade, dirt was always felt. One day, one man said directly, "Listen, you don't have to participate, just give us your name. With your status, banks will open credits without questions, and will share." I refused. And he replied, "Too bad, better not refuse such offers." And smiled. After that, for the first time, I had the feeling that I was being watched. Cars that followed me too long, people who stared too intently in cafes, phone calls where there was silence on the other end. Maybe it was my paranoia, or maybe not. I still don't know. I remember I bought a watch, very expensive, the kind I dreamed of as a teenager. I put it on the first day. And on the first day, I felt that people were looking at me not as a person, but as prey. In the subway, yes, I sometimes rode it just to feel normal. I caught glances, not friendly but appraising. As if everyone was thinking, how much is it worth? Can I take it? I returned home and put the watch in the safe. And realized, the things I buy for freedom actually make me a prisoner. One day, I learned that rumors were going around about my family. Like we sold the apartment so I could invest in the mafia. Like I got involved with crime. Like my parents are now in danger. It was a lie. But rumors live longer than the truth. And even my parents started to be afraid. Dad said, "Maybe you should move farther away from us. You never know." And at that moment, I felt like an outcast in my own family. With each day, I distanced myself more from people. Not because I didn't want to, but because I couldn't. I saw hidden interest in everyone. I saw a threat in everyone. And even when someone was sincere, I no longer believed. This feeling is like walking down the street at night and thinking you're being followed. Even if no one is there, the fear is still with you. There was one evening. I was sitting at home, in a huge house where every echo returned 3 times. I poured myself a glass of expensive wine, and suddenly realized that I was afraid to go outside. Just afraid. Did money make me free? No. They made me a hostage. Wealth is not only luxury. It's also a target on your back. And the bigger your bank account, the brighter this target shines in the dark. People think wealth changes your wallet. In fact, it changes your head. When you have little money, you think about how to spend it. When you have a lot, you think about how to keep it. It sounds strange, but anxieties become more. Every day, dozens of calls. Lawyers, bankers, tax consultants. You start to fear not buying something, but losing. I suddenly realized, Poverty is the fear of not enough. Wealth is the fear of they'll take it away. One of the first things I realized, money buys time. I can afford not to cook, not to clean, not to stand in traffic. Everything can be delegated. But there's a downside to this. When you have everything, your day becomes empty. You wake up in the morning and realize you have nothing to do. I caught myself sleeping 12 hours, simply because I saw no point in getting up earlier. Before, I rejoiced in little things. A new t-shirt, weekends with friends, going to the movies. Now that disappeared. Movies, I have my own home theater. T-shirt, I can buy 100 at once. Weekends, every day is like a vacation for me. And that's where the tragedy lies. When every day is a holiday, there are no more holidays. I bought a dream car. A month later it got boring. Bought another one, same thing. I traveled the world, but cities started to blend into one picture. Hotels, restaurants, airports. Everything lost its taste. Life became like an expensive but tasteless dinner. Beautiful, but not satisfying. There's a truth I realized late. Money amplifies what's already in you. If you are kind, you'll become generous. If selfish, you'll become a monster. In me, money awakened cynicism. I started looking at people like figures in a game. Someone is needed, someone is in the way. I stopped seeing them as friends, partners, just people. Saw only interest. And you know what's the creepiest? I started thinking that they think the same about me. One day I woke up in my house full of gadgets, expensive furniture, collections, paintings, and realized I have nothing to look forward to. When you have no money, you have a dream. When you have money, the dream dies. And with it dies the energy to live. Sometimes I communicated with other rich people. At parties, at closed meetings. And you know what I saw in their eyes? Emptiness. They talked about yachts, villas, stocks, but almost always without fire. As if all of us had something in common taken away. Meaning, I tried to find a way out. Went to psychologists, they said, you need to find a hobby. I tried, collected paintings, did sports, even learned to play the piano. But everything got boring quickly. You know why? Because when you have money, you can quit at any moment. A hobby without risk is empty. The scariest thing is loneliness. You're surrounded by people, but they all want something. You can't be just yourself. You're always a wallet, an opportunity, a status. And the more money you have, the fewer friends you have. One day I caught myself thinking, what if I lose everything? Maybe I'll become alive again. This thought scared me, because I realized wealth became my cage. And I myself don't know if I want to break it. Money changes you. First they give you power, then take away meaning. And at some point you realize the most valuable thing in life is not what you can buy. Money gives everything except one thing, understanding why all this is needed. The last straw. It happened unexpectedly. I woke up in the middle of the night from a sound, as if someone was walking around the house. Security was in place, cameras were working, but the sound was real. I went out into the corridor empty, only the echo of steps. And then I realized, even in my own house, surrounded by security and technology, I don't feel safe. My house for millions was not a fortress, but a cage full of fears. The next day, I went to my parents. Dad was silent for a long time, then said, "Son, we always wanted you to be happy, and you became rich. That's not the same thing." Those words hit harder than any threat. I realized I had lost connection with myself. I decided to disappear. Not forever, not completely. Just go where no one knows me, without security, without luxury. I rented a small house by the sea, walked barefoot, cooked myself, went to the store for groceries. And for the first time in years, I felt the taste of life. That very taste I lost among champagne and limousines. I realized money is a tool. They can give comfort, can buy security, but they don't give meaning. Meaning you have to find yourself. Money can increase freedom, but only if you don't become their slave. You know the irony. To understand this, I had to go through everything: emptiness, fear, loneliness, paranoia. Only by losing myself could I see what really matters. Answer to the main question. People ask me, how do big money change life? I answer, they make it brighter but not happier. They give power but take away peace. They open doors but close hearts around you. And the main thing, money doesn't change life, they just show who you really are. But there's one more thing I rarely talk about. Sometimes I think, was it all worth it? Was it worth going through nightmares for wealth? And here's what's scary, sometimes I don't know the answer. Sometimes I look in the mirror and ask myself, if I could turn everything back, would I choose wealth again? Or would I stay that same guy who knew how to enjoy simple things?